What are some of the common mistakes that people make when they invest or they buy a property from a legal perspective?
Well, I guess one of the ones that we see all the time is not buying in the correct entity. People are excited. I totally understand it. They sign the contract in the name of their own personal name, their own individual name, and then quite often they'll go and see their accountant, and the accountant will tell them they should have bought it in the name of a company or a trust or their super fund. So then you have to go back and unwind things and seek to have the contract put into place in the name of the correct entity that's better for that client. That's probably the number one problem that we see, because we give pre-contract advice, but if the contract has the correct conditions in it, the client is protected anyway, because there are cooling off provisions across Australia, but you can look at building, pest, finance, due diligence, those sorts of conditions, and that means that the client is protected because the contract's not unconditional until those things are satisfied. I guess that's the main issue that we see. I guess we don't generally advise on commercial aspects, so we're not really qualified to tell them whether a certain house is well priced or whether it's a good deal. We have to kind of step back there, and they need to take advice from a valuer or another property professional as far as that goes. But your lawyer will have the local knowledge and can give you a general sense of whether the property is right for them, but without actually going so far as to recommend or make recommendations, because that is outside the lawyer's scope of practice, really.
Is the decision about the correct entity, is that a legal thing, or is that an accounting thing, or is it a bit of both?
It's generally a bit of both. Yeah, you have the accountant is the one who's handling the client's tax every year. They generally know the client's financial affairs better than the lawyer. The lawyer is retained when the client is doing something, whereas the accountant rather, is dealing with the client every year, every quarter, and more frequently. So generally we'll defer to the accountant to advise the client on what entity they should be buying in.
But it just speaks to that central thing, doesn't it? The importance of having a team. The team needs to include a good lawyer who understands real estate, an accountant that specifically understands real estate, quantity surveyor, property advisor, good researcher. There's so many elements to the team. They all need to be in place before a smart investor would actually go to the big step of actually buying a property.
Sometimes a town planner as well, Terry. There are professions to answer any question that anyone has about buying property.
At Hotspotting, we've got what we call an 8-step process you go through as a property investor, and actually researching for the property you're going to buy, step 7. But what we find is most people actually start at step 7, and they neglect all these preliminary steps, like understanding their goals and building their team. And I think that's the big mistake that people make.